Greetings, it's the 21st of May, 2024. Delighted you could be with us. This is the PCI Community Forum, and we also welcome members from I4J, right, that are able to be with us today. Over the last several days, we've had remarkable celebrations of the 50th anniversary of the Internet. Two of our forum advisory board members, Lin Wells and Suzanne Sincavage, are with us. They attended this event live, and we are very grateful that they're here today to give us eyewitness report to what Mei Lin Fung, Yasha Stein, and the leadership team of PCI pulled together over the last couple of years to celebrate the 50th anniversary of this remarkable resource, the Internet. And I'll turn the call at this point over to Lin Wells, who will kick us off. And then Lin and Suzanne will go back and forth, right, with observations and witness this great event. Lin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I'm gonna start with Suzanne talking about sort of an overview of the conference and the main points, and I'll go through the schedule a little bit. So if you would just start with that, Suzanne.
Okay. Well, what an exciting event. It was incredible. It was packed with numerous panels speaking on this most important celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Internet. Technical innovators, global leaders discussed breakthroughs and contemplated about creating a people-centric future where the Internet benefits all of humanity. And the celebration began with opening remarks by Mei Lin Fung for the people-centered Internet. Of course, is leading the way for a more equitable digital world. With all of these global experts, it was a very inclusive event. Efficient digital strategies were covered to enhance community resiliency and prosperity. Together, Vint Cerf and Mei Lin Fung, also co-chaired by Yasha Stein, worked tirelessly on this event for the people-centered Internet. The opening remarks began around noon with Mei Lin Fung and Thomas Cullen, president of IEEE, and they reviewed basically that this is a reflection and the role, they covered the role of technologies in contributing to the people-centered Internet. The 50th anniversary went off without a hitch. It was, oh my gosh, it was so exciting. Some of the questions that were addressed, they covered what led to TCP's invention, what role each of these panels played in the Internet and the TCP IP story, what motivated the invention, and covering the challenges that we're facing now in the future as the technology evolves and becomes more ambiguous. So there were many stories shared, and it was very engaging. It was interactive, and okay, let's see what else. I am going to focus today on the Bill Gates Foundation and India's role and what they have done to make this event possible. So I'm gonna, I think, where would you like me to go from now, Kevin? I could, I guess
Well,
let me just cover a little more of the schedules. Suzanne, let me tell you a little schedule, they'll give you the
okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
So that's exactly right.
Yeah, so we had the opening remarks, as Suzanne said, and so Mei Lin made the introduction with IEEE President Tom Coughlin. David Kirkpatrick and Kate Wilson were the moderators of most of the panels, which
Mhm.
began with Vin and Bob in the hotel, actually, where I gather the TCP IP manuscript was written. So for the historians, it was just a remarkable gaggle of luminaries. And then there were also a lot of people at the cutting edge of what's happening now. So the Digital Public Infrastructure Panel, which is one of the things that Suzanne will be talking about next, focused on India and the Bill Gates Foundation, and the whole issue of digital public infrastructure resonated throughout the conference. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis talked about really the extraordinary progress that Greece has made since 2019 in digitizing public services and how they leveraged COVID actually to make a lot of progress. There's then an AI panel, which I'll dig more into the Greek Prime Minister. Suzanne will dig into the AI panel that talked about what's being done in NVIDIA, in Bangladesh, at Stanford. Then there were a whole batch of discussions with IEEE, which talked about how the standards evolved. And I had frankly knew almost nothing about how the 802 standards evolved. And this went into great detail about how they came to be. And then wrapped it up. So with that, Suzanne, why don't you go ahead and start with the India and Gates Foundation.
Sure. Yeah, this panel was the people-centered digital future countries and what they are building. David Kirkpatrick, Anir Chowdhury, Sanjay Jain, and Paramount Pharma were leading the panel. And it started out with India and its digital public infrastructure journey. India has implemented a set of open digital platforms and APIs that have significantly enhanced access to government services and financial inclusion. Some of the key building blocks included our digital identity systems covering over 1.4 billion people, UPI interoperable digital payment platforms, or digital payments platform, processing over 13 billion transactions per month, digital locker for secure document storage and sharing. These platforms have enabled a new generation of public and private sector innovation, dramatically reducing the cost and friction of the service delivery. Examples that were given included the direct benefit transfers for government subsidies and social assistance, the digital onboarding, and know your customer processes were covered for financial services, portable health records, and telemedicine services. India's approach is basically an open API, and standards are enabled to provide interoperability and competition rather than a centralized government ran system. Some of the results have been very impressive. Financial inclusion increased from 20% to 80% in the past decade, an estimated 3% boost to GDP by 2030 due to digital public infrastructure that India has put forward. Its success has basically generated global interest in digital public infrastructure as a tool for inclusive development. In summary, India's experience with digital public infrastructure has demonstrated the transformative potential to an open, interoperable digital platform to enhance access to services and drive inclusive economic growth. They then moved on to discussing the Gates Foundation's work on digital public infrastructure. And the Gates Foundation sees the digital public infrastructure, also known as DPI, as essential to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and enhancing inclusive development. It's currently working to help other countries learn from India's experience and adapt DPI approaches to their own contexts. Key initiatives include providing technical assistance and capacity building for governments on DPI, supporting open source platforms like MOSIP, Modular Open Source Identity Platform, and Mojaloop, interoperable payment platform, funding research, another initiative, funding research and advocacy on DPI through partners like GovStack and the Digital Public Goods Alliance, and incorporating DPI approaches into its own pragmatic work in areas like financial inclusion, agriculture, and health. The foundation's belief is that DPI can help countries leapfrog into the digital transformation journeys by enabling faster, cheaper, and more reliable service delivery, promoting innovation and competition through open APIs and standards, enhancing transparency and accountability in government, increasing resilience and interoperability of digital systems. However, they realize, though, that these benefits will require significant investment and political will, as well as careful attention to issues of privacy, security, and inclusion. The foundation is truly committed to working with other countries and partners around the world to support the responsible development and deployment of DPI for social impact. In summary, the Gates Foundation rounded off this panel with other global institutions, which are now working to help other countries learn from and adapt these same approaches that India has to their own context, and advocating for greater investment in DPI as a public good. They realize, however, that to take advantage of the full benefits of DPI will require ongoing collaboration, innovation across governments, civil society, and the private sector. So that was a summary of that panel. And if there's
I have a
any
question.
question, sure.
Could you define to lay people the DPI and give examples? And like in the India situation, are we talking about a government funded massive cloud that anybody can use? I mean, is for any
Well,
purpose? What's it?
well, yeah, well, yes. I mean, they're building blocks, right? Their building blocks have included the digital identity system, which covers 1.4 billion people. So yes, they have engaged over 1.4 million people in the DPI with, transactions. These are transactions over, 13 billion transactions per month. And they are enabling document storage and sharing. Some of the examples that I indicated before were the benefits are transferring from government subsidies through social assistance. And they are doing numerous transactions for onboarding customers and collaborating with numerous financial services, including as well as portable health records, telemedicine services. So yes, they are collaborating with the public and offering the safe transfer and storage of health records, also with telemedicine services. Their APIs are open, and they're decentralized. They're not a government ran system.
Well, who actually owns it? Who's legally liable for it? Let's take India. Who's legally liable for the DPI in India?
Well, they didn't cover the
No,
liability. They didn't cover it. Nope.
I'm a lawyer. Sorry.
They didn't cover it.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone, Brian, thanks for being with us today, that Suzanne and Lin are our correspondents, right, to the event. They're not the subject matter experts for all the
Yeah,
topics.
no, that's fine. Yeah, and I was there yesterday, guys, and
All right,
Malin
good.
and Malin and I go back. I brought Dr. Tim Berlin, so Malin and Tim and I go back over 10 years. So working on this
Well,
stuff. So
well, Brian, were you able, through your contacts there, were able to find any of this out? Like who actually dominates or owns this? Because their focus.
No.
Yeah, okay,
That's why
either.
that's why she's
no,
asking.
yeah. Yeah, this is all new to me, and Dr. Tim is very involved with cloud-based electronic health records. In other words, the patient owns the health record, not the hospital. So that's one of the things that Tim has been working on for 10 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but that's by no means a universal approach. I mean,
oh yeah,
I like the
absolutely.
approach, but that's not to say it's been adopted everywhere.
Oh yeah,
So,
no, that's what he's working on.
Yeah. So Brian, if you would like that as a topic for a future PCI call, put it in chat and we will absolutely consider that. We'll go find a subject matter expert to address it. If you're interested.
Right, and Brian, your question is well received. My take from this panel was that the Gates Foundation is directly involved in the commitment with countries and partners of India. So I think that they, from what I gathered, is that they have a fundamental role into decentralizing a non-governmental approach. And I think that they have implemented a number of these initiatives to make sure that it is decentralized or to support decentralization.
Interesting.
And
Right.
it's, taking it outside of government control. That's what I gathered from this, but I sure didn't meet other attorneys there.
So,
Oh
so
yeah,
let's
really.
move on.
Yeah.
Brian, go ahead. But we're going to move on to the next topic after this. What do you got?
Okay. Well, next was a panel. Okay, Lin is going to discuss.
Talk about Greece here.
Yeah, why don't you do Greece and then you and I, or we can cover the
Then
AI
you can
panel.
go back to the next AI panel.
All right,
But,
thank you.
Say, Lin, what I was the guy who was holding you up on the chair when you were putting up the poster for Eileen.
Thank you.
That
Thank
was
you.
me. This guy's standing up on a chair.
I
at his age.
appreciate the quite literal support.
Exactly.
Anyway, so this was an interview with the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, interviewed by Konstantinos Karatsilios, who is a former managing director of IEEE standards organizations. And the Prime Minister was elected in 2019 and proceeded immediately to push for a number of digitizing initiatives, which have been, by all accounts, very successful. And he was reelected with a significant majority based on the performance. Remember, going back to the late teens, Greece was sort of the sick man of Europe, and there are all sorts of questions about default. And I gather that the progress through digitization has been quite striking. So they have a portal, gov.gr, which offers a wide range of services. Now, getting back to your point about who owns it, the Greek government clearly owns gov.gr, and I don't know who, whether there's services on there that have been added as third-party services that use the platform, or whether the government accepts responsibility for all of them. The impression I get goes along with what Suzanne says. The government is trying to decentralize as much of this as possible. So it would not surprise me if there are not some non-government owned services on this, but everybody knows they can go to gov.gr to get digitized things. So there's stuff like chatbots. They're putting in AI now, chatbots to improve service delivery. The thing he emphasized over and over again was the importance of citizen-centric approaches. And they start off by saying, how is this going to, we're not implementing this because we got a cool tech solution. We're implementing it because it's going to do something useful to both citizens and civil servants, because they acknowledge that getting acceptance of this from the government is important. They've been doing government skills training, which was really interesting in the sense that he cited some elderly women who are actually taking training on gov.gr in order to, as they said, we don't want to be dependent on our grandchildren to do all this digital stuff. So one of the questions was sort of, what do you wish you had known sooner? And he said, as he broke down, what they did is they broke down the government silos and moved most of the government data into one ministry. They have a Ministry of Digital Transformation. And the question now going forward is, as they move to AI, how to balance the benefits and risks of AI. And there's not a good debate going on right now. And so that's one of the things he wants to push going forward. The other point he made repeatedly was be bold in this digital transformation. What was striking about this is that the Prime Minister was not sitting around reading from a prepared statement or anything else. He clearly was up on the issues and very engaged with his discussion. He talked about the difference between having access to all the information on the internet and now having the ability, the AI, to have machines do things better than we can. And that's one of the points, again, going back to the debate that he's wants to have, because he's concerned that the citizens are going to lose confidence in a lot of the digital progress because of suspicions about AI. So it was a long interview. It can go on for a long time, but I think everyone came away very impressed that the Prime Minister of the country was this committed to the issue, and also this conversant in discussing the topic.
So any questions for Lin about that section of the proceedings? All right, hearing none, I'm going to, are we going back to Suzanne now?
Yep.
All right, Suzanne,
Okay.
you did a great job on the first section, so we're going to give you more time. This is great.
I really appreciate it. Well, this panel was very interesting. The topic of the panel was, how can we ensure AI services for everyone, everywhere? And it was moderated by Kate Wilson, who is a senior fellow of the People-Centered Internet, and Nir Chowdhury. He's a policy advisor for A2I and ICT, and division cabinet division UNDP Bangladesh. Fifi Lee, who is the co-director of Stanford's Institute for Human-Centered AI, and Keith Stryer, VP of Worldwide AI, NVIDIA, U.S. National AI Advisory Council. The topics that were reviewed, the overview of the session was that artificial intelligence holds the vast potential to save and enhance lives, unlike anything preceding any other technology. They addressed how governments, the private sector, and academia are working together to successfully shape the future by the increasingly dominated AI, and how we can deepen the the cooperation and collaboration to fulfill the internet's early vision and correct our mistakes. They address that, including other perspectives. They began with addressing the current state of AI and its potential impact, that it's rapidly advancing and it's becoming more ubiquitous across various industries and domains. They addressed its potential to bring significant benefits, such as improvement, efficiency, personalized services, and scientific breakthroughs. However, they also noted that there are risks and challenges associated with AI, including job displacement. We have definitely heard from the doers, and bias, patterns, and the potential for misuse. The panelists emphasized that there needs to be a human-centered approach to AI development and deployment, that ethics should be prioritized, transparency and accountability needs to be in place. They then transition how AI is a benefit, both for social good and economic development. They discussed how AI can be leveraged to address these social challenges and how AI could drive inclusive economic growth, particularly in developing countries. Some of the examples they gave included using AI for pandemic response, financial inclusion, agriculture, and education. But they noted the risk of AI could exacerbate existing inequalities if it wasn't deployed and developed responsibly. They emphasized as well ensuring that AI must be equally accessed, and that the skills and training will be critical in realizing all of the benefits of AI for everyone. They then went on and discussed the role of the public sector and academia in the development of AI. They all agreed that the public sector and academia play a very crucial role in shaping the future of AI. Public sector investment in AI research and development is needed to complement the private sector efforts, for sure. I mean, they discussed at length how this investment that crosses the private sector and the industry is complemented, and that these benefits must provide resources to the public as a whole. They noted that academia could provide a trusted voice in the AI debate. They felt that helping to educate the public and policymakers about the technology's potential and its limitations were imperative. Again, they emphasized that the collaboration between the public sector, academia, and the industry will be essential in further developing AI in this inclusive manner. Okay, let's see. They then went on to discuss the need for global cooperation and the need for governance frameworks. They reviewed how the AI is a global phenomenon and it requires international collaboration, and that the challenges must be shared in order to benefit from the opportunities that AI could provide. They discussed more about the importance of developing interoperable standards, and Lin will go into this when I hand it over to him. and that the governance frameworks for AI that promote trust, transparency, and accountability need to be baked into AI moving forward. They did note, the panelists noted that the difficulty in basically keeping pace with the rapid advancements of AI technology, and that this is why there is such a need for ongoing multi-stakeholder dialogue and cooperation. The key takeaways and the action items that they shared were that it was important to take a proactive human-centered approach to AI development, prioritizing the ethics, transparency, and accountability, investing in public sector AI research and development, digital skills training, and that of course, that I reiterated again, and that the opportunities presented in AI. They really emphasize the key takeaway that I surmised from this panel was that individuals and organizations must actively engage in shaping the future of AI, and that we all must work together for a governance framework and to implement best practices and prioritize social responsibility and inclusion. So just the summary included the immense potential of AI for social and economic progress. That was definitely emphasized as the summary of this panel. They again reiterated a proactive, human-centered approach and to realize all of its benefits, all of AI's benefits. So that is my summary of the AI panel. I think they did a very good job laying out both the current and future state of AI and the impending concerns.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I would ask, right, both you and Lin, is that particular discussion seemed to be a discussion about AI in isolation of the internet. Okay. And I would like to, did you pick up any connective tissue between the ability to interoperate and to talk to each other globally and the AI conversation, or was it as distinct as I heard it? Because it was the 50th anniversary of the internet, celebration, and it seemed like this was kind of a bubble. Okay.
Yes, and it seems like we're still living in that bubble, and that's a good point, Kevin. And it did seem isolated, and it could have definitely had more visibility in this conference because the internet is the sole reason of its impact, right? Without the internet, we wouldn't have the profound changes that AI is doing. And another key point that I didn't really understand is they didn't expound on the opportunities of the future as far as engaging space technologies, right? Or laying another, and maybe Lin picked this up in the establishment of the standards more, but I didn't see much of an integration of how ground-based cabling could be effectively connected to space. There wasn't a space emphasis that I heard.
Yeah.
But yes,
Actually,
you're right.
I think that there was quite a lot of space emphasis in the session after this, the one where Vin got up and talked to Eileen's graphic. They talked a lot about the interplanetary internet and the way that TCP/IP standard just could not handle the time delays in interplanetary.
Yes, right. He did, and he didn't go into the what is needed for that interplanetary. That he goes into it in other talks. He does an outstanding job in discussing that it's not the the protocol that is being used on Earth, and how, because of space and time and physics, you know, how it differs in
well,
really.
that has nothing to do with the packet nature of the internet. It probably has to do more with, so how do you quantum tunnel or get quantum entanglement across distance, all right, that would over.
No, not at all. No, no, no.
No?
This
Yes,
is
that's what I was referring to.
Go
yeah.
ahead.
It'd be the packet. The packet transfers are basically, you have to take into account things like store and forward capabilities when Jupiter is not pointed at the Earth,
Oh,
when you know,
okay.
planetary motion, and also
Okay.
just the fact that, you know, TCP/IP doesn't do well waiting for 40 minutes between SYN-ACK. You know,
All right, good. The nuances that since I wasn't there physically, that I didn't pick up on. So I'm glad that you are, you know, helping me with that.
the other thing actually was really interesting, the discussion of it.
Uh-huh.
There's also an interspecies internet
Ah,
that's being, it was started back in the teens sometime, then kind of went languished, maybe even earlier than that. But now we're getting so much information. I guess I just saw something about 3 days ago that they've now been able to analyze the way the sperm whale clicks enough that they
Mhm.
think that they can get down to the individual. This is Fred, this is Susie, this is Julie, sperm whale. And there actually are individual identifiers in the click patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Um, and so anyway, the point being that at some stage, as we get more into this, that there's actually people planning for an internet that would allow dolphins to talk to people.
There you go. Well,
Yeah, the other thing, just to go back to I agree with Suzanne about the standalone nature of it. However, a relatively standalone discussion in this panel. However, several people pointed out that you really had to be doing much more efforts than we're now doing to get back to the kind of community discussions and shared standards and all that that were the underpinnings of the original internet, and applying those to AI. Because right now the AI is more of a, you know, wizard behind the curtain type thing. But everybody understands that sociology is more important than technology. And so how do you get it truly accepted? They also, yeah,
You're
go
right.
ahead.
No, and they, to Lynn's point, they did discuss like the importance of developing these interoperability standards, the interoperable standards, and the governance frameworks, right, for AI trust and the transparency and accountability, of course. And they discussed and shared the multilateral, you know, initiatives with the UN, OECD, IEEE, and to develop those ethics and guidelines. And those were highlighted as positive steps forward.
And yeah, Europe's digital act, and the US has the executive order, and so people are trying. But the one thing that they did, I never heard challenged. One of the points was made throughout the conference was the value of having the TCP/IP standard independent of either the platform or the application. And so it doesn't matter if you're transmitting over radio or over fiber or over Ethernet cable, and it doesn't matter what your app is. And the point, no one I heard challenged that AI would not be operating in that same kind of approach.
Yeah, he's right.
I have
okay.
a comment.
What's next on our summary hit parade?
So next is the IEEE's standards development 802.11 process, which again, I found actually really interesting, but something I had not paid attention to or known much about. So you had folks like Bob Metcalf, who's the father of the Ethernet, which actually predated, I gather, TCP/IP. And they went through, some of this started as early as 1980 with some a lot of talk was going on in the late 60s and early 70s. And so somewhere around 1980, the IEEE developed this thing called the Landman Standards Committee, LMSC, and to develop standards for computer networking. And so the comment was made that 802 may stand for the fact that the year was 1980 and the month was February when the first meeting was held, but nobody could quite trace that back all the way. But in any case, there are a series of 802 dots. There's 802.3, which is now the internet standard. It moved from 10 megabits per second up to 40 gigabits per second and beyond. 802.11 is Wi-Fi. 802.15 is now coming to be called something called wireless specialty networks, and it's lower power connectivity for things like IoT and other applications. And the general sense is that this LMSC, the Landman Standards Committee, is really a model for successful standards development that might apply in the AI world. And the basis of it, you focused on engineering excellence and high quality. The process was open, even you get much more serious disagreements. The Ethernet discussion was really interesting, actually on Monday, where you had different companies like IBM that had their token ring, and other companies had their proprietary technologies that they wanted to see adopted as the standard. And they basically managed to get the standard written so that it met all the Ethernet criteria, but without ever mentioning the word Ethernet. And so, again, it just went into this process. But the key point was that there was openness, there was due process, there were a lot of long hammering and tongs meetings to get these things worked out. But the ultimate thing is you had to have market relevance, and you had to win in the marketplace and stakeholder engagement. And that's why of all the 802 committees, really 3, 11, and 15 have been the ones that have been most successful. And they went then to expand participation. They're looking to expand participation from everybody, academia, government. And particularly, and this point was made several times, as you looked around the room, you saw a lot of really distinguished internet pioneers. You didn't see a lot of young people. And so the point was, let's do better about enlisting the younger generation. Suzanne, is that pretty good coverage from your perspective?
You did an outstanding job. And I think when Mei Lin's closing remarks right on Sunday, she with Joshua, I hand the baton over to you. I think Mei Lin did an excellent job emphasizing and talking about the young, and that we need more of the younger generation.
Yeah. Also noted, we're all invited to Bangladesh in December, where there'll be a discussion of the future of AI and digital public infrastructure. One thing Suzanne mentioned it, but I'm not sure how many people have paid attention to just how much progress Bangladesh has made through digitization. They're actually now consider themselves a middle-income country. Their target is Estonia level digitization by 2035, 2040 or so. Already they're delivering, they have like, of their 3,000, I think, government services that deliver 3,600 services, delivering 2,400 now digitally, with 5.8 billion services a year, which is considered to save people 12.7 visits to a government office, 12.7 billion services to a government office. And this whole thrust, they have something called Aspire to Innovate. Basically, think of what you want to do, and we'll try to help you get it done through the digital public infrastructure. So,
I mean, we've had the CTO of Bangladesh on as a PCI guest in the past.
Yeah, Anir Chaudhry is the guy who was,
Yeah. And Yeah, the only one that bothered me a little bit when he presented to us was, you know, we know you got married, so your marriage license is waiting for you at, you know, City Hall, right? Because we have all the social media inputs that tell us that you, and it's kind of like, oops, there's a privacy issue, all right, that we probably wouldn't accept in the way Bangladesh is doing it, but yeah, it's pretty remarkable what they've invented.
That's where Khashoggi went to get his marriage license to the embassy, right?
No,
To
Saudi.
to-
He went to Saudi.
right. Of course, it was Saudi, but he had to pick up his official
Oh.
license. It didn't turn out so well for him.
Right.
One country.
Whatever.
All right, so what else, you know, from an atmospherics point of view, right? You already said, hey, we needed more young people in the audience. So, you know, that wasn't probably an invitation, you know, issue. What else did you pick up about the atmosphere? Was it serious, joyous? Was it, you know, because there were some projecting into the future, you know, was it a future or a past orientation? How would you characterize the atmosphere?
The word that comes to mind for me is convivial.
Okay.
There was genuine enjoyment about the pioneers getting together and seeing each other and talking about things they did 50 years ago and so on and so forth. I thought they did a reasonably good job within the time constraints of saying, okay, this is the history in which we built, and these are the methods by which we built on it. And then here's kind of where we are today, and this is some of the things we need to do for the future. But just because of the time constraints, the future was more of a, you know, very general aspirational thing rather than being much specifically targeted.
Yeah.
My sense.
It was
Yeah.
it was nostalgic. It
Yeah,
was
good word. Yeah.
It was
Okay.
nostalgic. That's what I got from it. It was just
But
it was
also
just
a little more than nostalgic, and nostalgic is looking backwards, right? And they tried to look forward. Clearly, there was a lot of looking backwards, but they tried to at least, you know, there's this whole campaign PCI has on what does the next 50 years of the internet look like.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
They tried to lead us to that. There also, by the way, for the comment was made, I didn't have any way to confirm it, that there were over 1,000 people online in the session.
Yeah.
The word I would throw in is celebratory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a
But
good
the thing
one.
is, maybe I'm the lawyer in the group, but the thing is, I don't know, and I don't want to harp on this. Just real briefly, there should be, while we're celebrating, we should spend time identifying the evils that have also grown in the
Mhm.
technology. And I think it would have been helpful to spend more time. Well, at least that's always going to be my point. But I don't want to belabor it. But I enjoyed the celebratory nature of it.
Yeah.
Old friends. It was a lovely setting. Everything was really upbeat. So that's for sure.
So Vint actually addressed the negative in one of his comments, which was that basically, you know, the technology is always going to be able to be used for good and evil, and you know, in some respects a bigger problem than regulating the technology is figuring out what the people, how to guide the human behavior using the technology, because whatever you put out there in the technology can be used for either side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, the internet is pretty agnostic, right, in terms of, you know, use cases. It is a wonderful multi-tool, right? And whether you want to build something or burgle something
Yeah.
really depends on, you know, your intention. I asked
Well,
Ben
this
on
just
this,
one last point there, Kevin.
but
This cuts into the young people, because
Yeah.
if the young people are just given lollipops and roses and everything's going to work when they make their high-tech startups and become billionaires, there's got to be a voice that of wisdom and experience that and lawyers that say it ain't that easy.
yeah, well, guess what? The statistics on how many startups actually become successful is sobering.
Yeah.
So that's your starting point there.
Yeah.
Ben, I inviting you to join because you're a font of wisdom in this space. You've been contributing in chat. So join us. What does this moment mean for you, my friend? And by the way, Ben is a valued member of our PCI Forum team.
Well, certainly as as one passenger on that journey, and reflecting on the gateway work that I worked on with between the local area network protocols of Ethernet and the token ring architectures and the internet that makes it democratically accessible to us, that opened up that venue to us, to the IMPs, to the internet message processors. That's when we saw democracy opening up, and certainly with Tim Berners-Lee and the World Wide Web creating the protocols that further democratized it. My comment was related to the fact that I would hope that we would task ourselves this year with the celebration and nostalgic review, but an equal challenge, raise the specter, vision, and challenges for the next 50 years as a part of our discourse. And that by necessity involves engagement with the youth. And I think that we want to hear from the aspirations, and it's not about speculative elements of it. How might they want to live 30, 40, 50 years from now? What do they expect a day in the life to be? And what do they aspire for a day in the life to be at that time? And then also how they perceive these pathologies that we observe right now on the conditions that have occasioned ourselves. I'm all for the celebration and exercise of recognition, but I do think it's incumbent on us at this moment to raise some of that visibility of the horizons, and feed the discussion of the aspirations, not answer them. There's no way we're going to answer them, but I do think it's an opportunity for discourse.
Yeah,
Ben,
Ben,
Kevin, have we actually shown? Have we shown the without you briefing to the group here?
Have we? It was shown at one time by Yasha in a previous call at the beginning of the year, but we have not done it, since January.
Because that was the closing video they had in the series, which is what does the next 50 years look like with the flying blue whale?
Yeah, but that's as seen by old people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Ben is a professor down at Emory, and Ben, you've actually brought young people to some of our meetings. All right, so for those of you who have access to crops of younger folks, we'd be glad to have them join us, right? Or listen to these recordings, later on, anything that works, because this is a conversation that's worthwhile for present and future.
Yeah, last point I'd like to mention was the one highlighted about I was somewhat disappointed that the discussion was about AI on the internet and not AI in the internet. And embedded AI will change what the internet is and what it does, and how it engages. And the risk of control, the risk of ownership, who is served by that discipline, who is served by that intelligence, is a mission that we have to. We cannot always go to lower common denominator protocols, and as we raise the level of the protocols, that we raise the exposure. And this is part of my concern about this emphasis on humanity and human-centered. I don't know that I trust humanity to be the owner of the future of the universe, and that this flawed creature, kindred that we have, we cannot trust necessarily that humanity is the truest form of creating the fabric of our future.
Yeah. Ben,
Mhm.
I just sent you a LinkedIn post that I did called Rethinking Human-Centered Design, where I said it's not vibrating right for me right now. It's beginning to feel a little bit like the sun is revolving around the earth, right? And the anthropocentric nature of this, even though I've contributed dozens of papers, to human-centered design and UCD conferences. As I said, I'm really beginning to think that either living system design or earth-centered design or galaxy-centered design, that some larger frame is necessary. So I sent it to
And Kevin, to your point, and to Ben's as well, I think when they touched the key points of Bangladesh and how its infrastructure of AI has significantly reduced the the destruction of cyclones and the deaths that induced flood fatalities. And I felt that discussion it gives promise for what we need our young people, to focus on, right? Reducing fatalities through climate and when tragedies like this happen. And I think that was a really good example. And I can forward everything that was touched upon in regards to Bangladesh. But I thought that was less, it was for humanity, but it was embedded in sensing and in preventing or predicting or preparing for cyclones. And like we've done so many good talks, right, Kevin, about, with Puerto Rico and Matthews from there, and just how AI could play such a benefit for anticipating climate events. So
Yeah, I think that human-centered should not always be an answer. It should always be a question.
yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
So we're at the bottom of the hour. I just want to remind everyone that, this is the end of the formal time that we have, but we go into have our overtime. So if you can stay with us, we'd be delighted to do that. I see other folks. I saw hands, during our.
I must take my leave, but I'm so pleased to join you, and you can expect me to be a regular. But there's that old Irish adage, watch out for what you wish for. And
That's
with
right,
that,
Brian. We're delighted you're with
adieu.
us. Cheers. Bye.
Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.
And I saw Frank gave a exclamation there. So I'll ask you to join us. How is this moment resonating with you? And I know that you have lots of thoughts, right? So I don't have to cut you off today. All right, just small, right?
By the way, Mei Lin sent a note saying she's off an offsite at UC Davis right now and regrets she can't join us, but thanks us for the interest.
Well, when you talk to her, because I know where you are, right, later, tell her we missed her and we thank her for everything she did to make the event so successful. Frank.
Cut me off at any time. Yes, I have lots of thoughts. I feel really honored to be a part of this group. 50 years ago, I shared the vision with Vince Cerf, but I had to wait decades before he got the thing built. I then spent 35 years teaching online to learn scalable solutions for educating the world on best practices, focusing on children, K-12 teachers, teachers of teachers of teachers at a teacher's university, And the bottom line is this is about what I anticipated, a celebratory, nostalgic, retrospective, a bit vague on the future. There is a lot to celebrate, particularly for the engineers. We have satellite connectivity, undersea fiber cables, Starlink, a device in the hands of 7 billion people, 3 billion more pending. But a lot has gone sideways, and I'm noticing that those discussions are very rare, and that the issue is we don't have another 50 years to casually evolve as we did from the 60s. We now have 4 authoritarian countries planning deep fakes for the election in the US, and a lot of ills that I won't bullet here. Others, like this Center for Humane Technology, have bulleted these harms, shall we say. But humanity in 1867 thought the first undersea cable to Europe was the harbinger of what's to come, keeping all humankind to the same instant of progress. And sermons were given on that. And I listened to one at the Smithsonian Museum of American History and stood there for the whole thing. At issue is now everyone's connected, but we're not connecting. Instead, it's all about money, not about Doug Engelbart's co-intelligence, whose name I never heard of before, before Mei Lin mentioned it. And I've watched the mother of all demos and more. And I think we're in the age where we need the mother of all calls to action. Who's going to do what to bring humanity to a point of unification as stewards of our species and our earth and all living things? Because the internet has created many opportunities and many benefits, but it's also put dangerous power in the hands of bad actors who find it easier to profit with negative applications than positive applications. And AI all of a sudden is moving so fast that, well, here's a quick example. Scarlett Johansson, we all know as the Avengers Black Widow, had her voice on the 2013 movie Her, which was about a negative view of AI for everyone in an age where everyone would have a smartphone. She just found that Sam Altman put her voice pattern in the new ChatGPT after asking if he could buy it from her, and she declined. And now she finds he went and did it anyway, but that version of ChatGPT has already been released. So my concern is Sam says, let's put these tools in the hands of everyone and see what happens. And the range of bad actors that now have powerful deepfake tools is over the top and puts a lot of people at risk, even anyone that creates a digital twin, such as Jim Spoor, whose students he asked to create a digital twin of him at a website, and they did so. So he sent me a link of him speaking French, presenting a text file that they wrote using his face and voice image. And as a teacher of students, I thought, that's great, have the students do it. But the thing is, anyone could be capturing me right now, and I could appear as dozens of different deep fakes promoting propaganda in Russia and China, as has already happened to some online influencers. And so where are the young people? Where are the people that are on the cutting edge of both the really wonderful positives of AI plus internet, but also, whoop, we just lost Lin.
No,
I'm here. I just need to step away from the camera.
All right, that's fine. Your absence was noted, that's all. So I won't go on and on, but I've, because of PCI and these calls, I've gone from ground zero to the fast track on AI and risks and the broad spectrum of political issues. And let me end with this. humanity either comes together to monitor and promote the best practices while at the same time controlling the dissemination of powerful tools to potential bad actors, because otherwise there's going to be such a tsunami of chaos that it will quickly become unmanageable. And so I strongly support the ethos of PCI, but also note the absence in this call and others of the masses worldwide. I think the models in Greece and Bangladesh are great. My first PCI call was Chowdhury. And Snyder, who's in the background here, went to 30 countries for Mohammed Tunis, which started with an entrepreneurial model with 5 women and that scaled worldwide. And the scalability is really the issue. Yes,
Yeah.
we have pockets of excellence, but we also have 7 billion people with smartphones that have mental problems, loneliness. They see negativity as the new way you communicate with people, and co-intelligence was ignored, and Doug Engelbart ended his life in obscurity.
Okay.
So
Okay, so
too much, too fast, but you get the drift.
I do.
Questions?
And I just want to, and we're going to go to Mark Prensky next. I would just point out, right, is that while we have new media, we have new ways of, using technology. The technology did not, invent counterfeiting and fraud and depression. And, these are all pre-existing conditions, right? And, we have the ability to both, detect and create problems, right? The technology, as I said before, is agnostic, and we can use it for a lot of different ways. So thank you for your thoughts, and couldn't agree more that PCI as a mission is we're trying to bring, people-centered internet technology to more and more people for good, right? And now to Mark.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I missed the first half hour, but I'd love to inject into the conversation something that I've written about in my book, that we all come back to this fact that there are good actors and bad actors, and the technology is a double-edged sword. I think it's time in the third millennium to start thinking about changing human nature. And so now we have the kinds of technologies that will do this. I talk about the good side is a Lego: love, empathy, gratitude, optimism. There's more. And the bad side is grab: greed, racism, abuse, belligerence, bullying. And those sides exist in everybody. They exist in the old, they exist in the young, and they're going to be with us. And the grab part particularly gets in our way whenever we try to do something. And so the question that I pose for the going forward in the third millennium is, now that we have gene manipulation, now that we have a lot of techniques, a lot of technology that we never had in the past, what can we do to affect human nature and make us a more positive thing that we all want to be centered around, rather than having the what I think is the vain hope that we will ever come together, given who we are currently.
All right,
That's a good
good.
point.
Anyway, Suzanne, you want to jump in on that?
Well, Mark is completely right on. Until we start addressing our own flaws, as humans, and our character, and understanding that AI is going to point these flaws out more and more, and people aren't going to be able to hide it. And I think that is relevant, notwithstanding that there are some really scary threats out there, particularly in the synthetic biology field, in biotechnology. And Doug Hohulin has discussed a lot of this in the past about humanity and character and people. And you're right. Mark. It's so important because human character is flawed.
Yep.
That part saddens me more than the threats of AI. I mean, AI threats can be really scary, but the human side is, I don't, it's scary. Look how much stuff's going on.
Mark, do you have a
right?
follow-up and then we're gonna go.
I just want to say what's encouraging for me, and we don't have any idea how it's going to turn out, or there's, all sorts of ways things could go, but we never before had any tools to change human nature except for kind of inbreeding over long periods of time, which didn't typically work very well. But now we're starting to have these tools. We can create generations in days of we can do it for microbes. Now we're going to start to see if we can do it for people. And the question really is, will we come out of this as better people, as somebody who is more worthy of stewarding the universe than humans today?
And better according to whom? And
That's
what
right.
standard?
Better according to whom. And so that's why I put in Lego and Grab, because I think we can characterize some of the things that we want and some of the things that we don't want.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is go into philosophy 101 class in college and, spend the first, 5 weeks on what is good.
Mhm.
And discover that it's indefinable, all right, according to,
Well, that's one way to look at it, but the other way is to say it. If I talk about love, empathy, gratitude, optimism, are you going to say that very few people would call those things bad? And if I talk about greed, racism, abuse, belligerence, and bullying, very few people would call those good. So it's not that you can't define it in a philosophical sense. It's that we know what it is. Well, and I think that's more or less universal, except at the margins. So I think we can engineer this kind of stuff, and that's a whole new realm of engineering that we didn't used to like, but we better get, involved in.
Okay.
Right. And a future discussion for
Forum.
PCI might be on morality as a topic. It'd be really cool. AI for morality. That'd be cool.
All right, well, tee it up in
Good
our
point.
next team meeting as a topic, because you've got a voice in that. Actually,
Yeah, you do.
everyone who listens to these, if you have topics or suggested speakers, we're open to your suggestions. Let's go to Lin.
There are two things. One is on the deep fakes. There've been a couple of articles I've seen in the last week that talk about the breathtaking explosion of deep fakes in the Indian election campaign. And the gist of it is, if you want to see what November is going to look like for us, go look at what's happening in India now.
Okay, so say
so-
more, because about that.
No, I mean, just the candidates speaking on topics that they are completely antithetical to the positions they've taken, or are so far off the center line that they would negate, turn off a whole batch of voters. And anyway, it just seems to me, I'm relying on a couple of articles, but they all say the same thing, which is that India in this campaign is just flooded with deep fakes that are.
So how are people reacting to that?
People are confused.
But that's
Yeah,
that's the challenge.
People are what's happening is that the people are they're living their bubbles, and so if they see the bubble see the deep fake that reinforces their bubble, then they automatically assume the best or the worst about the person for whom it's addressed.
But that's the challenge of the 21st I call it the third millennium now. We used to be able to look at a person, hear something coming out of their mouth, or see that on TV and stuff like that, and say, oh yeah, that's right, I can make a decision based on that. Now we can't. So the whole idea is that this what we used to count as trusted sources is gone. And that's what you just described.
Which I
So
heard.
how do you grow up with that, and how do you make your decisions based in that world?
Well, so let me make one other point, and I'll come back to your question. How many have heard of audio jacking?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
So I mean, the way it was phrased to me was that if I'm talking with my stockbroker and the two of us are on a line, it's a man in the middle attack that basically says, I say, I want to sell 100 shares of XYZ and put the proceeds in account ABCD. And someone with my voice will intercept that call and tell the stockbroker, no, I want to sell 10,000 shares of DEFK and put it in account 6789. And the recorded conversation will appear to be my voice telling the stockbroker to do that.
So when we're in that world, that's the world of the future, because that's the way the technology is going. How do the young people who are going to live in that world, how do they operate?
And so one model that's been proposed is you move beyond trust but verify, but don't trust and verify. And which is kind of where ZTO, zero trust architectures are going and stuff like that. My question is, if you adopt that world because of where the technology is taking, what does that do to your entire set of social relationships? You begin everything with that level of suspicion. But I don't know how to square the two. I mean, I don't know how you take what's going on online right now and just blindly accept even what looks to be a perfectly good but spearfishing email.
And you know, the interesting thing about that, if you look at history, it's you would think, okay, the answer is just put together a group of people that you trust, and therefore you know you're in person and you know each other. But then there's Judas, so that doesn't work either. And the the answer is we're going to have to find new answers, and it's the young generation that's going to live in a world where everything that we trusted in the past is not going to be trustable.
Yeah. So we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I'll get Frank in here. Okay, so Frank, what do you want to add to this discussion as we wrap up?
Very briefly, it's all what people do with it, with the internet and AI. My issue has been the money we're putting into getting everyone connected doesn't include smart training that teaches both best practices and the dire risks. And I'm talking about rural folks, seniors, and most importantly, indigenous peoples worldwide, that they're, oh, you got to get on internet, and it changes the trust issues and their cultural tone, and it creates a lot of negativity that's not recognized when the government put 67 billion into rural and tribal broadband. And this is what Mark's saying is humanity needs a shared moral code. And that's what I see as the big challenge. Will humanity unify or continue to splinter apart because the connectivity is not connecting people around common cause? Thank you very much. This has been insightful. I appreciate all of you do.
All right, thank you, Frank, and thank you, Mark. We're going to now go back to our two stalwart reporters from this event, right? Suzanne, Lin did a great job of summarizing what you observed, and of course, this was a celebration. This was not a think tank, all right? This was a moment, to reflect back on what what we've gotten as a gift, right? How we use the gift that we've been given and what the next 50 years brings is, it's in our hands. So let me ask first Lin, then Suzanne, all right? If you could give me the top thing that you took away, right? The one thing that you'd like people to remember about the experience you just had, what is it? Lin.
Well, for me, the most memorable part was the people I met. The talks were interesting, and I thought the history was new to me. But the fact that even the pioneers had the similar message that said, as Mei Lin did. And now's the time to pass the baton, and how do we engage the next generation? That said, that next generation has to look different than the pioneering generation. And so how do you get more, I realize that diversity is a bad word in some quarters these days, but how do you get a more diverse set of thought patterns into the equation in order to address some of these challenges that are really nothing that any of us experienced growing up? So again, for me, the soundbite was, I think, hearing some interesting tidbits, but really meeting the people.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Lin. And Suzanne, bring us home. What was the one thing that you had that you want everyone to remember about the experience you just had?
Well, that PCI is a phenomenal organization. What meant most to me was meeting a number of the PCI team that works so effortlessly and hard and behind the scenes, and how dedicated that this nonprofit is. So when you compare it with the organizations, the nonprofits that were featured at this celebration, I just see that PCI is evolving into this amazing network of people that are going to bring this humanity vision here together. They're going to attract the young people, people like yourselves, that have make such a difference. And the launch of the PCI website and all the efforts that are ongoing, I mean, they touch me more than the larger societies, the associations. IEEE is huge, right? The Internet Society, huge. But to see personally how PCI has touched topics that around the globe, that was my takeaway. And not the celebration was wonderful, but it afforded me the opportunity, by being there in person, to really get into the PCI inner workings. So that is the part that I walked away. It was, wow, what amazing work that PCIs do.
Well, again, Suzanne, Lin, thank you for being our eyes and ears, right, for the celebrations that took place out in Silicon Valley at Stanford and the Computer History Museum. I know that there will be more of this conversation during the rest of the year in different places around the world, right? But you have our great thanks for this recap. And for everyone who is a member of the PCI Community and Forum, we're delighted that you are part of this community, and we look forward to having you on our next call and all the calls that we will have in the future. Congratulations, Internet. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, you guys. Thank you so much.